RealAgriculture.com comes to you today from the C&M Seeds Industry Day, and I'm joined by Brian Gerard from Gerard Seed Solutions in Indiana. And welcome to the show here, Brian.
Thank you, Bernard.
Now, hey, you've just given a perspective on what's happening in America with the wheat crop, where it fits from an acreage perspective, how it stacks up around with corn and soybeans. Give us some thoughts on, hey, as I say, how wheat is doing in the U.S.
We obviously have two distinct markets from a geography. We have the West and then we have the East, and that's where I'll focus today. If you look, wheat is obviously in competition along with some of the other minor crops with corn and soybeans. There are double crop area, wheat is good. The economic calculator to the farmer says, hey, let's double crop. Where the concerns lie, obviously, are in the single crop area. Why should I grow wheat in a single crop area? Why should I put wheat if I'm renting ground? And especially when you look at the economics of corn, you look at the economics of soybeans. The great thing is we see advancements in wheat and the varieties and offering benefits that are definitely going to allow the grower to capture value. When we see on-the-seed technologies in place, when we see the value of wheat as a cash cover crop, when we see the value of wheat coming in and really helping from a multiple factors, from straw, when you're looking at, for water filtering, when you're looking at having fields that have just been tiled and you provide cash on the backside of that cover crop use. We see a lot of values there. We see a lot of interesting things coming forward to allow acres to fit in. One thing that doesn't get mentioned very often is the increase in corn yields following wheat versus the increase in corn yields following soybeans. You have significantly higher yield. I've heard anywhere from 10 to 14% on the average. I've heard as high of instances of 18 to 21%. That alone is a value that if the farmer understands, if that's communicated to the farmer, he will see the real value of putting wheat on those acres.
And let's talk a little bit about technology, new traits. Corn and soybeans tend to attract the big investment. How's wheat doing? Are we falling behind?
Depends how you define falling behind. If you look at it in relation to the amount of dollars being spent on corn and soybeans, you would see an exponential growth in those areas and that actual dollar value being less on the wheat side. The other perspective, though, is looking at it within the context of wheat only. And the amount of money being invested in wheat today is at an all-time high. When you look at that, you've got the 5 largest seed companies in the world investing in wheat for North America. And then you throw in, obviously, Bayer, which, they're a very large company. You've got Dow invested into wheat. Now, all of a sudden, you have dollars going in that have not gone in before. And the value of those dollars are higher, even as you figure in inflation, than ever before. Also, you're seeing more public-private partnerships. So you see the universities working closely with the private companies, and they're doing joint research efforts. They're working together on the wheat genome. And one of the first results you're going to see out of that is scab-resistant lines with yield. The universities were really important into putting that the initial work done with the scab gene, and now you see the private industry taking that to a new level, breaking the yield linkage that used to come along with that gene. And the farmer's going to benefit. Seed companies this fall will be going into the ground with major production in scab-resistant lines, and then the farmers obviously will be able to plant that in 2016. That's a real benefit. But you're also seeing advances in other diseases, healthier plants, and all of that is something that's really gained steam over the last 5 to 10 years, partly because of this new investment, and maybe it's spurred because of better intellectual property protection on wheat.
Now, one thing you talked about obviously was on the seed technology, and that's an interesting perspective because, as you said in your presentation, it's tougher to get a trait into genetics and get it approved everywhere. It's a lot easier to put the actually technology on the seed, and that's an interesting conversation here in Ontario today because with what's happening with neonicotinoids and how the government's push to get rid of some of those seed treatments. Talk about the importance of on-the-seed technology for wheat growers and why we need to maintain it and push it.
Before we go there, I think I will address the neonic issue from my perspective. I think it's too simplistic to say, well, neonics are killing bees. One, I don't know if that evidence is even out there, if there's been enough research that proves that. Also, there's multiple factors. I know within the U.S. anyway, there's the Verret mite that's causing a lot of damage to bee colonies. A lot of bee colonies are moved from one region to another, and that travel and the stress it puts on them. There are less pollinator gardens as we continue to, change our landscape. There are other answers. So I would encourage us, number one, to slow down. Within the U.S., we got the bee initiative going on. I work heavily within the American Seed Trade Association. We're proud partners with different groups, and the government's endorsed it. We had a presentation at the White House a couple weeks ago, and so we're excited about what's going on. But The overreaction to me, personally in Ontario, I don't think is good for the industry. It's not good for the farmer. It's not good for the province, because I just don't think there's that knowledge base yet to jump to that conclusion.
Right.
That being said, on the seed technology for the farmer is crucial. There today, more than ever before, are technologies, seed treatments, coatings that go on that seed that provide real value to the grower. Whether it's better emergence, whether it's fighting aphids, whether it's fighting any other type of disease, whether it's providing maybe a handling of will this provide better protein down the road. I know we're testing one this year that potentially increases protein level. Whether it does or doesn't, we'll find out. But those are there, and those options are there, and farmers are experiencing real value. If you want a great example is the English flea beetle in Europe. People who were growing oilseed rape, when they were able to use the proper treatments, a great crop, brought tremendous value to them. With that ban, you now see those acres shrinking, and those acres that are there are really suffering to provide economic return to the grower. I just think we need to trust the science, work with the science, and let's gain a knowledge base before we overreact, because farmers will pay a price and have economic difficulties if they're not able to use that on the seed technology.
And final question for you, it's always the question when we come to wheat, is hybrids. And you made some comments about when you think hybrids will be available to farmers. They're still a ways off.
Yeah, once again, this is my opinion. I preface it with no insider knowledge from any of the companies that may be working on hybrids. I think in the West, hybrids will come sooner. And I think there's a couple reasons. One, the amount of acreage both in Western Canada and the Western U.S. is huge. And right now that's a commodity-based business, and I think you want to see it come into more of a seed business, and that's why there's investment there. So hybrids make sense. Also, I just think they're going to work better. I think by 2020 maybe, you'll start to see the spring hybrids on a larger scale. The hard red winter wheat hybrids for the West will follow closely, my opinion. Like I said, I'm not speaking for any of the developers. I think in the East it will be a little bit longer. I just think they're going to have a more difficult time making the production and the economics fit. Could be wrong, hope I'm wrong, but I see that probably more, if at all, coming in 2022 to 2025, maybe further out, if at all, for the East.
Well, hey, thank you for the prognostications and the insights for today on what's going on in the U.S., and thanks for joining us on Real Ag.
Thank you. I guess we'll find out in a couple of years how right or wrong I really am.
We'll come calling.
All right, thanks. See you, Bernard.